What's driving the Perth property boom in 2025?
The minimum you're going to be paying for the basic level is $8,000 a square metre.
It's crazy, isn't it?
What about the first time buyers you are seeing? Are they in that cap?
That's not their forever home. Like, they have to use that as a stepping stone.
What's the different fundamentals between buying investment property and buying a home?
If it's a 3x1, they're going to make it work because they know the market's moving so much.
What's the biggest reason someone would sell an off-market?
I classify as the 3Ds, so death, divorce and debt.
Death, divorce and debt.
It's
That's
probably,
the first I've heard it.
you don't have a floor plan, you're going in like, this is pretty tight, and you realise it's actually not a standard bedroom.
There you go.
There's really good knowledge there.
That is local market knowledge.
You're listening to the Follio Property Podcast. I'm Reece and I'm here each week with my co-host Lachlan Delahunty. Lachlan, did you know 85% of our audience isn't subscribed to the channel right now?
It's disappointing, Reece.
It's very disappointing. We've just ticked over 4,000 subscribers across all platforms at the moment. Aim is to get to 5,000 by the end of the year. So
Do us a favour. Give us a follow.
Do us a favour. Give us a follow.
Reece
Hit like.
he will reveal his barber if you give us a follow.
And if you're listening on Spotify, which we have a regular audience on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating as well. It really does help grow the channel and bring amazing guests like the man in front of us today, Director of Verve Buyers Agency, the largest buyers agency here in Perth. He's also on the ground personally specialising in the luxury market in the western suburbs. Anything else you've got to add to that, Lachlan?
Ex-West Coast Eagles player, I believe, many years ago.
Didn't play any games, so I don't know if I can count that.
Okay, just drop it.
Rowen Powell, welcome to the Follio Property Podcast.
Thanks, boys. It's been a pleasure. I've been watching from afar. Grateful to be on.
So, Rowen, what's driving the Perth property boom in 2025?
Obviously, the lack of stock is probably the biggest one. Confidence throughout the market. Obviously, as you guys have alluded to in your podcast a lot, there's a lot of noise externally, but I think that the biggest driving factor is just the fact that we haven't built enough. I think that's driving it. And
even in the higher end as well, is that sort of echoed through? I know the lower end of the market, we've talked about the scarcity, there's no homes, but off air a couple of months ago, you said you really start to see that top end of the market turn.
Yeah, especially for the established stock.
Yep.
A big driving factor is probably that land value play starting to go out the window just because of the cost of rebuilding a lot of properties. So you're starting to see people are starting to move into the top end in the 10 to 12 to 13. So maybe it's something that's built in 2016, 2013.
Because there's better value in buying established, when we say new in the last 5 to 7 years, than buying, landlocking something, knocking down and building because the cost of building so...
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially in that prestige market, like the minimum you're going to be paying for the basic level is $8,000 a square metre.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because I know pre-COVID, a big strategy that you were out there in the market was land banking, right? Getting assets where you can knock down, because the cost to buy land and build, you're probably going to be $1 million in front on those sort of higher end properties, where you're seeing now that's switched, where there's more value in the established market because of the replacement cost.
Yeah, probably in the last 6 months, the start of the year, I think everyone went the land value play. And then now everyone's starting to go, well, I think that's really dried up and the stock's not there and the costs are too exorbitant. So you're starting to see that top end really move. But I think it's also just transactions. I think there just hasn't been enough. Like I think in the last 2 months in Peppermint Grove, there's been 3 to 4 above 10 mil. Wow. Whereas before that, there just wasn't happening and the confidence wasn't there, and it was a completely different market compared to maybe your Florrie. It's the 3 to 4 type of price points as well.
Yeah, the top end of the market, and when we talk top end, it's sort of that 5 to 30 million market. Is it predominantly driven by sentiment? Because we've seen it's super optimistic market conditions in Perth for the last 2 years, but we haven't seen the top end of the market move all that much. But obviously now the share market's booming and you've got really positive sentiment, gold prices, etc. Does that have a lot to do with it? Are you seeing just a lot of confidence across the board?
Well, they've all got different vehicles of wealth. That's why they're at that price point.
Yep.
They're not they're different to the day-to-day type of buyers. Yep. So everything needs to kind of align for them, and then once it does, you see a flurry of those transactions occur.
Yeah. So you're seeing multiple offers in those high price
Yeah,
points.
multiple offers. Like there's been a couple in City Beach where they sold for 9. It was all in the same street. So it's just a confidence. One got listed asking 8, sold for 9, 4 offers on it. Then on the back of that, like 4 houses down, one came up for 9, sold straight away. And then on the back of that, the person that's bought it is selling their house around the corner because they're upgrading because they bought a land value play. Now that's going to sell for 8. And so you're seeing the cascade effect of people just seeing that the market's moving and they're probably more bullish than anyone else and they've seen it before, so they're jumping all over it.
What about on the lower end? Obviously, you've got your finger on the pulse on the higher luxury side of things here in Perth, but being a director of Verve, you're well across, I guess, the rest of the space here in Perth. What's been the feedback on maybe that low entry side of things?
Like it, countless offers. I think a couple of the team members missed out on one for around that low ones, and it sold for 1.4, and it was 21 offers on it. And it was in like Leadable, not the greatest part of it. And then you start to and now like look through that and you go, wow, that's pretty substantial. The villa market obviously has really picked up, but then it's anything that's more of that around that low ones, and you can almost say the low twos where there's a high competition, a big buyer pool.
Yeah, is that upgraders as well? Is that people that have maximised on the market over the last 3 or 4 years and now starting to capitalise into that next echelon of suburb or property?
I'd almost say first home buyers.
Yeah,
like that low one is first home buyer. Low twos is people that have had bought something entry level, maybe like 2016, 2018. The market's gone up. They've got a bit of equity, and now they're starting to buy that 2.1, 2.2. That would be like the people that are buying their second home. And at the moment, the conversations around it, that's not their forever home. Like they have to use that as a stepping stone. It's almost 3 or 4 stepping stones until they get that final piece.
Yeah. What about that first homeowners cap increase? The sentiment was huge across the country. Probably it felt more East Coast that was driving a lot of the growth because Perth was already on a stellar run. But what about the first time buyers you are seeing? Are they in that cap, or are they in that 1.1 budget that you mentioned there, which is going to be above it?
Probably around the cap. Like I think like for our website inquiries, we had like 38 in that week once it got released. So there's a lot of people trying to get access, but the problem was all the savvy investors were snapping them up like that type of product and it was pushing it. So instead of getting like a 3x1 in Jundana, you're being further out. So I think it was almost too late to get to the party in that sense. But yeah, there's still the sentiment but I'm seeing a lot more of parents having to help. Like that's the next part of the conversation.
Thank mum and dad stepping in to give them a leg up.
Yeah, but that's become more substantial, even in that low 2 type of price point, because they know what the type of product difference between like a 1.5 and 2.1 is massive.
Are Perth home buyers being forced to compromise in 2025?
100%. Yeah. The only thing that Perth home buyers are not compromising on, I think, is probably like location. People are still pretty savvy in the market, obviously like main roads, things that affect it long term. But location, like school zones, anything like that, they're just getting in. If it's a 3x1, they're going to make it work because they know the market's moving so much. So their wish list is kind of going out the window, and it's like, what are the non-negotiables? And it might only be 1 or 2 instead of having like 5 to 6.
Let's talk about the buyer agency side. Yep. That's why we really wanted to get you in, because we hear a lot of noise. We speak about this all the time as well, but it's really important from a home buying perspective. So myself and Lachlan are always actively talking about the investor side, but it is a very different process. What's at the moment, how are you finding the market here in Perth as opposed to 12, 18 months ago when there was a lot of East Coast activity in the market as well?
I think it's more thorough, I feel. Obviously, the market's moving faster and it's aggressive in pricing, but it's also understanding like what makes up a good property, because certain suburbs you feel like they can't go anymore and they're almost getting to that ceiling where it's like unaffordable. You're spending $4 million in Floreat, whereas probably 12, 18 months ago there was $3 million. So people are starting to tap out at certain points. So you've got to be really careful with what you're buying now to make sure, well, if the market, because obviously when you're buying homes, you're in it for 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to go through countless growth phases. But fundamentally, if you have a flawed asset, it's not really going to help you long term. So you've got to be really careful with what you're buying.
And during that FOMO phase, that's typically when people make really bad decisions, right? Because they've missed out on 5 or 6, and then they somehow justify that buying on a busy road outside the school catchment that they desire is actually now suddenly a good idea just to get in. Are you seeing that, and how are those conversations trying to, I guess, direct clients back to what their brief was when they sort of originally caught up with you?
You just got to be ruthless, because if you've been through markets before, you know what sells and what doesn't. And you know what fundamentally a good property is. So it's just steering them away from that. And the biggest hurdle a lot of buyers face at the moment is a lack of transparency. So they're not sure. Something could sell for 3.2, right? But all the offers are at 2.9. Someone's just overpaid. Is market value 3.2? Is it where the buyer pool is at 2.9? And then so you're really going to understand.
How would a buyer get access to that sort of information?
They can't. That's what the beauty of what we do is. So if we're getting more information, and that's literally all this market's missing at the moment, we're moving so quickly that information kind of gets missed because they're forced to make a decision about something that's like 3 mil or 2 mil, even if the first home buyer, you're making it in a few days and you don't have the access to the information to make a calculated decision.
That's a really good point, because we always say, as a valuer, when I went to university, you learn the definition of market value, and essentially it is over market conditions, what someone's willing to pay, right? So under that scenario, if someone in that sense has paid $3.2 million, it's easy to say, well, that must have been market value. But what you're saying, and I completely agree with it, if there's 10 offers, 9 of those offers between 2.8 and 2.9, that would suggest that's probably the indication of true market value. And there's an East Coast buyer, investor, buys it sight unseen for 3.2, an uneducated offer. Well, that's the outlier. But all of a sudden, 3.2 is the norm for market value, sets a new precedent. But having that knowledge is super powerful.
Well, if you can even go further with it, like if someone's at 3.2, for example, they might be hiding a sub sale. So like they're doing the longer fight, like the longer settlement piece to get their offer accepted, knowing they have to sell something. So they might do 90 days, everyone's at 30 days. So like, okay, I've got to blow everyone out of the water so I can get this accepted and then go sell my house. So there's so many variety of factors there at play.
Saying that, just so that for the audience there, so if you've got a subject sale, you may have to pay an extra 3, 4, 5% in this market to secure an asset.
Probably more.
So then if, I guess, public information, that 3.2 was a subject to sale, they've had to pay more to get it. Having that information is super valuable because the next property that pops up, that was an overflated sale. Makes sense.
Well, and they might not put sub sale on the offer as well. So that's another.
Well, the buyer's not going to get access to
Correct.
that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So having that level of knowledge becomes super helpful, because I guess we get asked all the time, how can we help clients? How do you know you're not overpaying? And we preach on the podcast, knowledge is power. The more you know about the area you're buying in, that's why I always talk about area specialisation is so important, because the more you know about a particular market, the more you know about the information, the sales evidence gives you so much more knowledge when you go into a negotiation. Is that never been more true?
Oh, 100%. Like, obviously, if you're doing your job right, you're getting more access to information than sales agents do. Because if they're just following up things in their pipeline, that they're missing the opportunities that another agent might have. They've gatekept, something could be off market. You could understand where offers are off market. You could know that something could sell for 4.2 and there's 4 offers under 4.2. And then they're appraised it at 3.5 and everyone's appraised at 3.5. So you know how quickly the market can move in a week. So then you take that information and you utilize it to your advantage.
And then I guess if there is a big sale that happens in a local area, and it doesn't matter if that's at $750K, at $1 million or at $5 million, it takes typically 45 to 65 days to settle. If there is a big sale in the area, you've got 45 to 65 days to buy as much as you can under that price point, because once that settles, it becomes public information, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what part of the market you're working with. I've seen it at the 7 mil mark, seen it in the million. Like, as soon as things move and momentum's so strong in this market and it's so aggressive with price point, like, that's all it takes. Like Peppermint Grove, for example, one sold for 6.6. I was looking at for a client, so then I knew that sold for 6.6. I went and bought something for 7. Someone else did the same thing and went and bought something for 8, and then now everything's selling for 10, because off the back of it, there's momentum, there's buyers, activity, people are seeing it, it's moving, and then they're like, you know what, I can almost set the market myself, and they're being aggressive within means of understanding where market value is.
Yeah, I had an auction a couple of years ago now. I was in Karrinyup, and it sold for a bumper, right? Everyone was praising it 1.2, 1.25, and we're looking for a client at other properties in the area around that sort of price point, and ended up selling for 1.45, which at the time was ludicrous. Now that's a fantastic buy, but it was a 200 above where we deemed market value. Obviously, not everyone attended the auction, so that information becomes really, really helpful, because we went and bought a property literally the next day around the corner for 1.25, because we knew once that information came out about that auction result, it was going to set a new benchmark. So that sort of period of time between a bumper sale and that information being released to the public becomes super helpful for buyers.
What's the biggest reason someone would sell an off market in the current market here in Perth at the moment?
I classify as a 3D, so death, divorce, and debt.
Death, divorce, and debt.
It's
That's the first I've heard it.
Yeah, well, at the moment, there's a substantial amount of divorce. There's not too much debt getting around. You could probably classify that with a lot of people being bridging loans or trying to find something or downsize. And as everyone knows here, like we probably haven't built enough downsizer product. The uptake of buyers to move into apartments just isn't there. So,
but people do sell off market, right? Everyone says it's a sales pitch for buyers agents to lure in clients. You know, A, why, like you said, why would someone sell off market? And B, do they? How many,
yeah, there's substantial amount, depending on price point as well. So like in my market I work in, there hasn't been enough transactions to warrant where value is. So you kind of almost test the market to see where people are sitting because they're not too confident of your discrepancy between 10 to 13 mil is pretty large. You sometimes see price points of 10 to 15 and it's depending on where you see value. But a lot of that time off market, they might have bought somewhere and they need bridging loan to match up. They don't have the time poor, don't want to get the house ready. Divorce, it's pretty, like you don't want everyone coming through and understanding your circumstances and you don't want it to affect the sale of the property as well, especially if it's a pretty messy divorce and it's a well-known people, it's probably the only market you make money in for a divorce at the moment, but you don't want it to have any impact on the future sale.
And that's interesting because, people, we get asked too, it's like you've just nailed it on the head. Why would someone sell off market? But if you're going through a divorce, you may not want the entire street to know because as soon as you sell a property, they'll be like, well, why are you selling? Something's happened, right? And if they're those 3 Ds that you talked about, people want to keep that confidential. But it's also probably convenience as well. Sometimes speed's more important. If you say someone's under pressure with bridging loan scenario, speed is more important than a better price.
Yeah, and it's also like understanding you don't want tire kickers through your property. I think that's the biggest one. Obviously, I think properties are the tip of the tongue of most people. And if you
at the higher end,
you don't want like every neighbour to come through your property or anybody just to have a look. So it's really filtering through who the genuine buyers that can pay that price. And then further to that as well, time's critical. So they might have hidden a sub sale, they might have bridging, they might have other circumstances. They've got to match things up. So for them, even getting the house ready, they might have 3 or 4 kids, other circumstances. There's a variety of reasons why people do it. The other ones, obviously, like I said, it's just not having transparency about what the resale might be. So if you're understanding of maybe that there's a fluctuation for value, you could sometimes, and like obviously, just because it's off market doesn't mean, I think it's got off market has such a fancy title, doesn't mean it's good buying.
Yep.
Some
would argue you have to pay an off market premium.
Correct, and it's understanding if you haven't done your research and you're not doing that market like
every day, you're not inside it every day.
Yeah, well, you don't know what's good value and what's not, and sometimes people can get caught up on the hook of off market and overpay.
Pay too much. Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, and we have seen that, right? You see a skewed sale hit the market, and sometimes it's often it can be an out of area buyers agent, right? That
Correct.
sets a new market record because they actually don't know the local market.
Well, and that's the difference between being a generalist and a specialist. Like if you know your market inside and out, you should know every property that's coming up for sale. You should know the buyer pool you're up against, and that's something I know. Like I know the buyers I'm up against most of the time because if you're in conversation with them, you know budgets, you know what's working against you and for you. So you've really got to position yourself to the best chance of secure the property.
Rowen, Perth is at historic low listings. Like we've spoken about this on the podcast multiple times. Can a regular punter get into the Perth property market in 2025 without that inside knowledge, like a buyer's agent or building the relationships with the local agents?
Without regret, probably not. I think that's the biggest thing. There's a lot of FOMO and people probably making mistakes. It's just understanding how often you're transacting on property and how many properties you're seeing and understand where value is. I think that's the average punter can get very lucky. And a lot of conversations I've had with buyers over the years is like they think they're very astute property investors. They think they just got lucky. They could have bought on main roads, all these factors that contribute it, and anyone could have made money. Whereas when you get to the pointy end and you're buying a home, it's a pretty substantial cost. It's like how often, like when you're doing you're going for surgery, right? And you're getting a specialist to do a full knee recon. You're not just getting the average Joe. You're probably getting the best of the best. Someone that's done it day in, day out. Why would you leave that to chance? That's the biggest thing I look at as well.
Yeah, that's the number one thing I tell my mates when they put shit on me for not doing any of the renos myself. It's like, why would I?
Yeah.
Why would I do a poor job at that when
Yeah.
there's experts out there that's their living. That's what they do day
It's
in,
their
day
craft. Yeah. So, but yeah, good luck to the average punter at the moment, especially depending on price points but with the way how quickly the market's moved, like they're still reviewing data that could be 6 to 12 months old. Whereas if you're on the ground and you're seeing things sell quickly within that week, and as Lachlan always alludes to his videos, they move by 0.7 per week, and if you factor that out for the next 4 weeks, like you can almost have 4% growth, and on a price point of 3 mil, adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah. And do buyers agents in the lower end of the market, so let's say the entry point, I know lower to you earlier was 1.1, but I'm talking maybe more.
Yeah, like 550.
Yeah,
600,
maybe
if
the
it
more
still
5,
exists.
550, 650. And then, all the way up to the price points you're dealing with. Is there different offerings between the higher end of the market versus the lower end in terms of like an advantage of using a buyer's agent?
I think the more of the lower end at the moment is probably like that investment grade or the portfolio like strategy. And then the more further up you move, probably in price point, it's executing market knowledge. I think that's the biggest one, and relationships. I think that's the biggest thing. So if I've been dealing in the sector that I have for some time, you're utilizing my 10 years of knowledge and relationships. So you're understanding the fundamentals of what the suburb, why would you buy in certain areas, the risks of development proposals. You've got a town planner in my team. So there's so many different factors that go towards it. Like you can even go further and you go, well, especially some price points in City Beach, you've got to calculate how much is a view worth. And if you're not across that and you're maximizing your view or the potential to lose it, the price point's massive. So the more, I think the higher up you go, the more expertise you need in a different element of providing value to a buyer. The higher up you go, the buyers are more astute as well, because they've probably bought and sold many properties in their lifetime as well. So you've got to add something that they wouldn't originally have. And that is market knowledge, that is access to properties, that is intel that's going to put them in front, but also just getting that last right of refusal and understanding where value is within the market.
About area specifics, you've kind of touched on this. We've spoken about this. How important, especially in a home buying side of things, is it to have someone who's a local expert in that particular suburb?
There's no point of hiring a buyer's agent if they don't know more than you. Like that's simple as it should be. If they don't know more than you do in that area, and they don't know the agents, they don't know the market, they don't know the good pockets from the bad, you're better off doing it yourself.
How would an average punter, because buyer's agents, it's a sales role, are very good at selling themselves. How would an average punter, I guess, quiz a BA to find out what they do or don't know in that scenario? How would I know? How would I come to you and know that I don't know more than you?
Reel off how many properties they've purchased in that area and which ones. Call up agents in the area to understand if they're actually active in the area and who they would recommend. Really good point. Who's more likely to reach out to them. Because the last thing you want is to hire a buyer's agent that doesn't do anything in the area and you're at a disadvantage.
So if you call 3 local prominent agents in the area and say which buyer's agents you'd recommend, that would be a great way to filter through.
Yeah, 100%. I get it every now and then where you get buyer's agents they've never been heard of, and then they get referred to me in that regard if they're not active in the area, because they might not be across to sale, and therefore their commission comes into it, and they're wanting to do a deal, and then they don't put the client first, and then that's what hurts them, because they just want to get the deal done, because they know if something comes up, they might jump all over it. They might get off market, like I said before, and think it's a premium, and it's how good's this, because that's all they're trading. That's all they've got is off market access, whereas they could get an overpriced listing and then pay for it.
Where they could have bought it for 200 or 300 grand under market if it had gone online.
Well, if they knew the market, and if they knew what's occurring, or if they knew what else is out there, they wouldn't buy it. But if you're not across everything, it's like the difference between a selling agent that specializes in that area and sells everywhere. Like, it's not genuine. The connections aren't real, and the advice you're giving isn't accurate as well.
Rowen, I guess I always talk investment. Sort of ingrained in me is investment property and data and analytics. Home buying is very different, and obviously you specialise in home buying, particularly in the higher end. It's very emotional. What's the different fundamentals between buying investment property and buying a home?
The biggest one's functionality. So understanding what your family needs are versus probably an investment needs. Obviously, a lot of people want to be close to amenities. It's very similar in some aspects. So school zones play a massive part of it, depending if they're selling to private or public as well. So you start to see that. But the biggest one's just functionality and livability. So making sure the floor plan, natural light.
Isn't that frustrating though? Because I know when I did some home buying back many years ago, you'd find an absolute deal where you're buying at 200 or 300 potentially under market value, but the wife hates the floor coverings and the curtains and doesn't like the kitchen, and I'm losing my mind going like, how are you not buying this? This is like a deal of the year. Does that come into play? Does that not frustrate the hell out of you?
Yeah, it does, but you got to provide more context. So those things can be changed. Like if the floor plan's not functional, you can't fix that. If you, as you know, the perfect floor plan's clear entry to exit, nice open plan, living. If you don't have that, then you start questioning why you're buying it. But I wouldn't probably go through the property to start off with. So you've got to do your due diligence prior to make sure it's worth your while, or else you're playing the long game extremely long. And so if you've done all your work prior, you know it's probably going to match their brief, and that's the art of home buying. It's, well, I know what exactly it is they want, and then you've got to find it before they even know it is, and then you've got to communicate and educate them about why it is they should buy this. Even if it is under, or if it's a good investment, if it ticks what they're after, then it's a non-negotiable in that sense.
Maybe I was just a shitty buyer's agent, so couldn't wrap my head around why they wouldn't buy the deal of the century, but it turns out they've got kids and they need more than one bedroom, so it's a great land bank.
Rowen, which Perth suburbs are undervalued in 2025?
Oh, if you asked me at the start of the year, I probably said like Dalkeith, Peppermint Grove. I know that sounds a bit strange, that river precinct.
Dalkeith's been asleep for like 4 or 5 years, right? And it's just woken up.
It's just woken up. Same as Peppermint Grove. There's a lot of buyers moving from Cottesloe across to get a bigger land holding. I still think like through pockets of Subiaco and Shenton Park, like they're still really highly desired, still close to a lot of amenities.
A lot of doctors, right? It's just doctors flooding in from the East Coast and want to be close to the hospital.
Wembley was undervalued for a period of time, but thanks to Craig Gasper, I think they've changed a fair bit. That Bayswater Maylands precinct, I still think that's got a bit of growth left, especially with the train line coming through. A lot of obviously infrastructure has been built around that, and you're getting your character homes on 650, 700 square metres for what, 1.5, 1.6. Whereas you filter that out and you look at like Inglewood, Mount Lawley, I think there's still substantial price growth through there as well.
Any micro markets appearing within these
suburbs?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say yes. Like depending on, I think like it goes back to school zones. I think that's the biggest factor at the moment driving home buyers.
You mentioned that a few times, right? Like the school zones, and we talk about this when looking for investment properties, and I think it's super relevant because the best investments are those that are driven by owner-occupier activity. And from what I've heard today, school zones is it.
Well, especially like Bayswater, Inglewood, like they're on the pocket of Mount Lawley Senior High School, and you could be one street out and you could be hundreds of thousands of dollars difference.
Crazy.
Just for that sake. So like, yeah, there is like micro markets 100%. And it's obviously like streetscape, little things like that, how close you are to amenities. Again, like it's just back to basic fundamentals of buying a property. Like, why would you want to live in it if you're nowhere near anything and you're in a terrible school zone? No one's going to buy it.
What's the biggest mistake? We talk about the time investors make thousands of mistakes, including myself, but what's the biggest mistake you see owner-occupiers make when out there hunting for their dream home?
They fall in love with the house, but not the fundamentals of the property itself. So maybe that might be like main roads, anything like that.
What they discount, maybe it's like a lipstick on the pig, or it's been really well furnished.
Oh, the old agents, you can say it's quiet at night and it's busy, but I think a lot of people probably, they talk themselves into things they probably shouldn't. Because
it's so tight?
Yeah, and also the market's moving so much and they don't think their money can buy what they want. And then they get stressed, and it's highly emotional at the moment. And some people just get fed up and just buy something for the sake of buying it.
And then move in and regret it.
Yeah, 100%. And then you're stuck with an asset that won't perform. And it doesn't matter if it's your home or investment, like a shit asset, still a shit asset.
And you made a very famous quote on various podcasts. The average person takes, 15 minutes to walk through a home?
It's 13 minutes, generally 13 minutes,
so
yeah.
The biggest financial decision, arguably, in their life, yet they spend 13 minutes to make that decision.
Yeah, and it's getting harder. Like obviously a number of people in home opens, but I think it's also like I'm even starting to see agents aren't putting floor plans on things. So imagine going through something, for 13 minutes and there's 55 people, but then you don't have any recollection of what you've gone through. You've got the photos, you've got no floor plan.
And floor plan's so important. It cannot be underestimated, right? Anyone who lives in homes, like I'm sure they'd want it a different way.
Yeah, well, like for example, in Duncraig, all the homes are built in 1970s.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s, we had a shortage of bricks. So if you go through all of those properties, all the bedroom measurements are smaller than 3 meters by 3 meters at about 2.7 by 2.8. So like long term, like the functionality of a bedroom, it's not there. And if you don't have a floor plan, you're going in like, this is pretty tight, and you realize it's actually not a standard bedroom.
There you go.
There's really good knowledge there.
That is local market knowledge. 70s, they ran out of bricks.
Yeah, 70s and 80s, and that's why you got like low ceilings and the built-ins are smaller. All these things, like, and there you can probably identify a fair few suburbs like Cardinia's went up the same time as Duncraig, Padbury, all these areas.
So get your measuring tape out, because what would look like a large room, could cause to be a problem if it's not accounted for.
100%, and it's just not functional. And imagine trying to put it's not a long-term play as well, especially if your kids.
You've got a growing family, right? You've got teenage kids. They're not going to sit in a 2
coming
by 5
home
by
and
2
your
by 5
21-year-olds in a 2.7 by 2.7. Yeah, good luck to you.
Rowan, we've got a famous segment that's probably not that famous, is I Call Bullshit. Is there any benefit in using a buyer's agent?
Fact, if it's the right one for that area and they're specialised in that area. If not, I call bullshit on using a buyer's agent that doesn't know their stuff.
So breaching local specialisation, area specialisation. You spoke on the podcast before. Do your research. If they don't know more than you in that suburb, don't use them.
Correct. They can't offer any value. There's no point of using them.
Rowen Powell, thanks for joining the Follio Property Podcast.
Thanks for having me, boys.